Previously on Van Life UK, a complete survivor's guide.
A close friend of ours purchased her dream van. Neglect. Warning, feels incoming. Basically, our friend has been down in the dumps about this van for the past 3 years. So hopefully, along with the stuff we have already and the money we make, we should be able to build a pretty decent camper for our poor friend. And we finally have an awesome plan ready to go. The perfect layout for the van list. Are you ready to see it? Well, hit subscribe and stay tuned for the next exciting edition in our van build series.
It were one of those wintry mornings so bitter that even the moss got the shivers, thought Beryl, as she nibbled on her freshly toasted Warburtons. "Hey, Jeff, would you like some of me crumpet?"
"Nay, lass, I've resolved to build an off-grid adventure stealth camper van that'll sleep far."
"Oh, have you?"
"You don't listen, do you? Did you not watch previous video?"
"Video? Oh no, I don't like these newfangled technologies, love. Are they expensive?"
"Well, what I'm doing can be expensive, love I. I'll save pennies where I can though. I won't scrimp on quality. I mean, you wouldn't accept less than a Warburton's crumpet, would you? Same thing here. Anyway, away into breach I go. Ta-da!"
Just kidding, it's me, and welcome back to our van build project, which we've called... Well, it doesn't have a name yet. Maybe you could name it. Drop a name in the comments below. Maybe we'll get a sunstrip made up with it on. Are you thinking? Have a look at these images and see what sort of name comes to mind. No steamy windows here with these leaky buggers. Doors, skylights, they're leaking too. There's water coming in all over the shop. Walls are hairy with fibres left over. Oh, hairy Mary. Rusty bullet holes. Oh, scratches everywhere. There's random patches of primer and look at that floor. It's a whole lot of mess and that's just the top of it. Hey, I don't know what we'll call it. Let's get it stripped out though and have a full gander at the damage. First out is the floor. Luckily it wasn't screwed down, or we'd have been in a pickle, as these screw heads all over were severely rounded and would have been a bugger to get out. That comes with its own set of problems though, as you'll see in a bit. Luckily, with the flooring just being glued down, we could just rip it up if we lifted hard enough, and we did, because we're well hard. And look at that, it came out in one piece. Huzzah! Sadly, it's in terrible condition, so it won't be going back in. I wish we'd dropped it off at the tip before sawing the van now. Oh well, that's lesson number 1. Don't saw your van if you're going to need to shift a load of big crap like this to the tip. Also, don't saw your van if you're going to need to pick up a load of new quality materials to replace the crap, or you might end up blowing a load of your budget on delivery charges, and handing them straight to Jeff Bezos. But never mind, we'll put it to one side, who knows, if fuel prices keep rising we might need it to cook us dinner this winter. Anyway, that's task 1 done. Let's have a quick sweep up and re-evaluate. First off, like we said in the first video, the van owner doesn't have the right tools for most of these jobs. That's why we're using this crap brush to sweep out. Ideally we'd be using a soft bristle brush, but we didn't have one at hand. So that's another thing to add to the list. Next, this plastic trim needs removing. The only thing holding it in place are some little plastic clips, and they're really easy to remove. If you have a trim removal tool like this one, unlucky. More on that later. But basically you need to get one of the decent ones, then you're less likely to damage the plastic, unless you're some kind of oaf, like Ralph.
Room here. We can take turns.
Or if you can see that it's seen better days and are planning on replacing it anyway, then you can just use a flat-headed screwdriver like so.
Gutless. No. Civilized.
Just push it into one side like this and pop the plastic bit out. This should take less than a minute, and then once they're all out, the trim should just lift off. Woo! Now that's off, we can finish the sweeping properly. But while we're here, also let's have a look at the weather seal. It's buggered.
and it has a load of primer sprayed on it. At least I hope that's what it is. Anyway, we'll need to replace that, because we don't want a leaky back door, do we? Now that's the sweeping done. Let's get down and see the floor properly. Although we were lucky to find the floor had only been glued down, unfortunately it looks like something has been screwed here at some point, at least 8 times.
What are you talking about?
Because we found these sticking out of the floor. Not good news. Now we have to check for more holes and see if they've been treated for rust. But first things first, let's get rid of these screws before something untoward happens.
Eddie, you snapped my pencil!
Raw, raw, raw. I love them grindy noises. Okay, it's bad news. We've found holes where a previous floor had been screwed down and some of them have obvious rust forming around them. We need to sand back the area to see how far the rot has spread. Any rust needs sorting before the conversion starts. That's lesson number 36. Because once it's buried under there, it'll just keep getting worse, like that kipper you left behind the school radiator on the last day. And one day, you're going to have to rip that radiator off to get the kipper out, and you don't want to do that. To fix these holes, we're going to need to see where the rust stops, and then find a bigger drill bit and drill the hole and the rot right out. This will get rid of any rust, and will take you back to stable metal again. Once you've done that, you'll need to paint the bare metal left exposed with some direct-to-metal paint to stop it from rusting again. And that's it. But that can wait for now. We have more tearing out and cleaning to do. We'll just add that to the list. Not to mention this. So it turns out the floor isn't in the best condition for a start. Let's rip some more stuff out and see what the rest is like. Cables. These are going to go. Though cable is expensive, we have no idea what condition these ones are in or how long they've been there, and they certainly aren't going to fit with our plans anyway, so they have to come out. We'll put them aside for now though, because we've got an idea for them later. They were pretty tight in there, but once you wiggle one loose, it frees up some space and another one lets go, like marbles in Kaplunk. One good thing we found is that we can reuse the sound deadening on the wheel arches. It would be a nightmare to take off and redo, as the wheel arches really do need it, and it would be an extra expense too. As it's in good condition, we'll leave it there and just clean it up. The next thing you'll notice, and something we've known for a long time, is how hairy the walls are. These are fibres left over in contact adhesive after 4-way stretch carpet has been removed. This, along with all the random grey primer, is going to be a huge nightmare to remove and take hours, if not days. This window's been cut way too wide and not high enough, so we're going to need to sort that out if possible. But for now, let's get on with what we've been putting off for well over a year now, making the walls less hairy. We searched for hours on the internet on how to make our walls less hairy, but all that kept popping up was this thing called V. What's all that about?
Hey man, you need to shave your balls?
So we gave it another try, and it came back with some very different but more helpful results. Unfortunately, most of the things suggested were specialist products that cost a small fortune for a small amount, so natural we thought. We figured we must have something laying around somewhere that'll do the job for a fraction of the price, and so the journey began. We tried all sorts, some useless, some better, some stupid, and some just plain dangerous. Nothing was perfect for the job, and it was stressing us out, so we decided to take a break. Although the petrol did a pretty good job, it's the stupidest thing we've ever done. It's far too volatile, but it did get us thinking, what could we use that's not quite as dangerous, but still as powerful? These look perfectly safe. We already had some white spirit knocking around in the garage, and some acetone and isopropyl alcohol for some bits and pieces later on in the build, so we cracked them open early, and slung them in some squirty bottles, and we got spraying on some test patches. As you can see, there was a clear winner, and not the one we expected. In our research online, we read that acetone and a lot of elbow grease is what was needed, but as you can see here, elbow grease was pretty useless. We used nearly a whole bottle and nothing happened.
Unless they meant... it doesn't matter anyway.
White spirit, however, was a completely different story, as you can see. So we gave it a wipe down and a quick spritz with some white spirit, and suddenly our walls started shedding their winter coats. And we thought, this is going to be easy. Okay, that was an absolute nightmare to get off, taking up hours of our day, but it's already looking a lot better. Just look at it. We've never had to remove this stuff before, so there were mistakes along the way, but now we've learned how to avoid them, and we're going to share that knowledge with you. Number 1. Wear gloves. White spirit causes skin irritation, dryness and cracking. Number 2. Open all windows and doors and wear a face mask, as breathing this stuff in can cause all sorts of side effects. Number 3. Wear goggles, as it really stings if you get it in your eyes, and it can cause irritation. Number 4. No smoking or naked flames. This stuff is very flammable. Don't try this at home. Number 5. Take the lid off of a squirty bottle and put it directly onto the white spirit bottle. This will save you pouring it and spilling it everywhere. Number 6. Squirt the pubescent area so it's totally soaked and then wait a few minutes. Don't get too excited. Number 7. Shave the worst of the spider legs off with a scraper. This will save you a lot of time. Number 8. Give the area another quick spritz with white spirit. Number 9. You will need something really abrasive to get the glue residue off. The white spirit can only do so much, and things like scouring pads are next to useless. So we use some of these. Yes, we know that this will scratch the paint and take the clear coat off, but have you seen the inside of the van? That's the least of our worries at the moment. After you've waited a few minutes for the white spirit to soak in, give it a good scrub with one of these and the majority of it will come straight off. If it starts getting a bit gooey, just give it another blast with the white spirit and start scrubbing again until all the adhesive has been removed. No need to let it soak in. Number 10. You're going to want to give it a wipe off with something, and we don't mind admitting when we're wrong. The internet was right and elbow grease was actually really good at this. We just wish they'd mentioned all the hard work and hard scrubbing that would be involved. So just give it a squirt with elbow grease and wipe with kitchen roll to remove any leftover white spirit. Number 11. Once that's done, you're going to want to use something else to get the last bits off. For this we use these. Brillo pads, which you'll be familiar with if you've ever lived with people who eat Weetabix and leave the bowls to solidify. I.e. if you've ever been a student. Yep, they are abrasive, but nowhere near as abrasive as these. So we thought, why not? And they were perfect for the job. They not only cleaned everything up really nice, but they were also good for picking up anything that we missed before. What we did was give the area another quick spray with elbow grease, fill up a bucket with water and washing up liquid, wet the Brillo pad in it, and then rubbed all over the elbow grease for the best results. Once you are done, give it another quick wash down with soapy water and a sponge, and you will have something that looks like this. This wall is going to take us ages, but don't worry, we're not going to make you sit here and watch the whole thing. Instead, we'll move on to something big and a bit less repetitive. Removing the interior. As the van has nearly 200,000 miles on the clock before we start converting it, we want to go over everything with a fine-tooth comb and fix anything that needs fixing before it's too late. When we say everything, we mean everything, so that means removing the whole interior. As you can see, the interior has a lived-in look. verging on the dyed-in look. So we're going to take the whole thing out, and once it's out, then it'll be much easier to deep clean and fix everything. We're not going to go into too many details about how to do it, as we've already posted a full step-by-step guide here. We are Van Life UK Complete Survivor's Guide. If you liked, please subscribe. We will cover the basics though. First, disconnect the batteries so you don't accidentally set off the airbags or trigger any warning lights. To disconnect the battery, first disconnect the negative cable, then the positive cable. This fan isn't going to be used for ages, so we're going to remove the battery completely and leave it plugged into a battery maintainer until we need to use it again. Once the battery has been disconnected, please wait 20 minutes before you remove anything. Once you've had your 20-minute break, you're ready to get stuck in, and it's all pretty simple really. We started with the passenger seats. That was just 6 12mm bolts. We thought they would be really tight and we might need a breaker bar to remove them, but in the end we just used a ratchet. Once those 6 bolts are out, you just need to remove the seat belt, and that's the passenger seat done. Lesson 5, or is it 4? Well, it's a lesson, so listen. Make sure you label and store the bolts so you know what and where they are. But we've hit a snag here. As we said in the previous video, we're doing this build as a favour, and the van owner only has the minimum of tools, and that meant she didn't have the right Torx bits to remove the seat belt from the seat. So we had to pop on Amazon and get some ordered, then turn our 20-minute break into a much bigger one while we waited for them to arrive. And here they are. Thank you, Amazon. They're great, aren't they? Except for the tax dodging. That's the seatbelt off and the seats out. They're no biggie, even a dwarf could lift them.
With only a few hours to go until...
And now we've got all this room. So much room for activities. Next we started on the roof bits, and this was all quite annoying to get off. Check out the full video for more details. It was a mixture of Torx bits, prying, yanking, twisting, random plastic Torx bolts, shelf brackets, metal Torx bolts, plastic trim clips, poor quality removal tools, injuries, crowbars, screwdrivers, unclipping clips and clipping cables. It was a whole thing. If you are removing the interior from a Vauxhall Movano, Renault Master or Nissan NV400, we really suggest watching our full video on it. It'll save you so much time and effort because it's not easy to guess at if you don't know what you're doing. That's not even the end of the roof. We had to remove a few more bits before we could get it out. We had to get at least one of the B-pillar trims off, and this means removing a seatbelt too. Lesson 67. Take care when removing or you might end up like this. After that, we could get back to all the excitement of the roof, and this, including lifting, carrying, searching for lost tools, unscrewing, unclipping clips, unclipping cables, spanners, nuts, tactical manoeuvring, bolts, and finally, more lifting. See, I told you it was a whole thing. Those of you who've watched the first episode in this series will know that the girl that we're converting this van for has literally no money at all for the conversion or any of the bits in it, so we said we would help her out in a few ways. One of these ways was taking any cash we find in the van and biggering it. And we'll be making a whole separate side series on this where we aim to show you how to make some pennies on the side turn into pounds on the side. Or just on how to make money, alright.
Game. It's not even a scheme per se, it's...
No, not like that. Real stuff. So when we were clearing out the van, we found a £2 coin and a 5p coin in the back while sweeping. And we were expecting to find much more when we cleared the cabin out, but we only found 22p. But there you go, that's £2.27 already. Woo! My mate Dave says he's a glass half empty kind of guy, but what does he know? He doesn't even drink. £2.27 in the eyes of a glass half full kind of guy like me can go a long way. Hit subscribe to find out just how far. Anyway, that's enough plugging, back to the sweeping. We're defo making some progress with the tear out, but we still have a few bits and pieces to do. One of them is removing the panels from the cargo area doors. We did sort of have the correct tools for the job, but they were really cheap and flimsy, as we mentioned earlier. And we broke one on the third panel clip we tried to remove, and did ourselves a mischief. We actually broke more than one doing what they were made to do. But before you say we were using them wrong, we tried the correct way and they just bend in half. That was the only way we could remove them with the cheap type. So that brings us to the question, do you need to spend money on a trim removal tool for your van conversion? Let's have a look, shall we? If you don't plan on using the panel or the clips again, you can just channel your inner charm and yank it off. We don't recommend doing this if you want to reuse the panel or the clips though, as it will cause damage. So what about if you want to reuse the panels? There's a good chance you'll have something laying around that you can use. If you're careful, you can reuse the clips too, however some won't be as pretty when they come out as when they went in. As you can see, if you go slow and pry them out rather than yank them out, they come out nice and easily. So in our opinion, unless you plan on removing panel clips often for maintenance, you don't really need to spend any money on this specific tool. However, if you are planning to, then I would stay away from the pry tools altogether and get something guaranteed not to damage them, so you can always get them back in. We would suggest something like a set of these.
I'm having to yank myself off round the clock.
Not bad, not bad.
Okay, so what's next? Oh yeah, the roof. There are a few bits up there that we nearly forgot. There are 2 skylights installed on this fan and both leak a lot, so we really need to work out what's going on with them. Let's jump up and have a look. So on skylight number 1 we can quite clearly see that it's just Sikaflex down with no screws at all. Mystery solved. It was a bodge job. Let's have a look at the other one. That'll explain that. It was never ever stuck to the skylight. She probably forgot to clean it before installing it. Let's whip these both out then. The first roof fan is actually a Dometic fantastic fan. Although it looks a bit rough, it's really good and powerful fan, so we plan to reuse it in this build to save ourselves about 400 quid on a Max Air fan. The plan is to take it all apart, get it looking brand new again. Then we have a few more tricks up our sleeves to make it as good as the Max Air, but far more stealth, as let's face it, Max Airs make your van stick out like a sore thumb. We'll show you how to do this in a future video. As you can see, where we've removed it has left a lot of adhesive and sealant that needs to be removed too. The whole roof will be painted before the skylights go in, so we need to remove 100% of it before we even start to prep for the paint. This will take a while, no need to watch us do the whole thing. The second, however, is just a cheap one, and because of the way the roof has been cut, we're going to need to install a much larger one, so there's no chance of it leaking again. And the final thing we need to remove from the van is this massive solar panel. This was a bugger. But we can now answer the age-old question, do solar panels need to be screwed in, or can you just glue them? I think we're qualified to answer that question. We could argue that this solar panel was never actually attached with screws, so that's clue number 1. The second clue was the fact that it was an absolute pain in the bum to get off, even with power tools. We knew from the start we wanted to try and reuse the solar panel, so the main objective was, if the worst comes to the worst, damage anything but the panel. We tried everything we could think of that we had handy, and then we settled on a good old grinder with a 1mm stainless steel blade. I would like to say it went like a hot knife through butter, but butter doesn't melt itself back together. Eventually though we cracked through, but that wasn't the end of it. So in our humble opinion, as long as you use the right adhesive and prepare both surfaces correctly, not even a hurricane will rip your panel off your van. Okay, so that very nearly brings us to the end of this episode, except for one small thing. We've been advised that the heater blower is either broken or has something in it. This makes a lot of noise when the fan is on, and on these models of fans there's only one way to remove it and have a look. Check out how we did that here. And that brings us to the end of the tear out video. We've gone from this to this, but we've still got a long road ahead of us, and that means lots of work and lots more videos. We are Van Life UK Complete Survivor's Guide. If you liked, please subscribe.